I'm Debbie Holmes. I'm an implementation consultant for PebblePad, and with a special interest really, I suppose, in health. So if I go too far down the health line today, you pull me back in and I'll try and be a little bit more generic. But I'm quite interested really in how we use the personal side of PebblePad. So the bit that we can't see, the bit that we can't measure, the bit that we can't sort of quantify. And this is sort of in line with what people do with their free alumni account as well. And maybe it's an area that we can shed a little light on if maybe we did a bit of research. The stats aren't going to come out the system. It's not going to tell us what they're doing in there, so we're going to have to find a more inventive way to find that out. And it's come across quite often over the sessions that people have actually asked, do you know how many of our students take the free alumni account? And we don't actually have that information, so we need to find a more creative way of finding that out. So in sort of line with some of the themes that we've been exploring today, and I did finally finalise what I was going to say about 6 o'clock this morning, and then went into Tracy Pennylight's session, and was really interested that she, like many of us, recommend that people who use and facilitate things within PebblePad actually use it ourselves. So instead of asking if you've got a portfolio, I'd like you to put your hand up if you use the personal side of PebblePad to do something that you're not directed to do by someone else. So maybe 25% of us. So I want to explore that a little bit more through the session, if that's sort of a useful exercise, and hopefully we'll do a little bit of active work towards the end. So thinking about what people might use it for, and thinking of professional programs, and in many of the sort of accredited courses that we run through universities, I thought implicit really is CPD. So most people might be doing something in there around CPD requirements. We certainly know that people will be meeting things like professional standards with our new teacher training standards, providing evidence of contemporary practice and study if we want to develop our careers. We certainly need to be showing some sort of CV out there that we're actually current and able to move forward. We certainly know it's used for registration purposes, especially around some of our HCPC, is that the correct acronym?
Yeah.
Thank you. And you know, in this day and age, we need to be able to articulate that we can maintain our competency, and that we are culturally competent to be in the workforce and to be in the area that we're working in. So that's where it fits with the Future Ready theme. Okay, this is my personal learning space. And I've got a lot of dormant pebbles in there, but I've got some very active ones as well. And the active ones in here are my green pebbles. So these are ones I'm maybe currently using, but they're not the ones I use all the time. And it may be one of these dormant ones is quite important when it comes to putting something together, maybe for my next job application, which I haven't told you about yet, Matthew.
Whoa.
Okay. So, you know, whose responsibility is this? And really, we know it's the individual, isn't it? It's the individual's responsibility to do this. But we do know that when our students come through into the workplace, sometimes they'll be gifted a system. And that system might be to present something like nursery validation. However, in most cases, people are looking at some way to collate their own learning and development. And I'm going to advocate that we like Tracy said this morning, we don't just all have a portfolio, that we actually all start actively using PebblePad and being able then to support the students better. I'm talking to the converted, I do know, for most of this room. I thought I'd put mine up there just to show you that this came from V2, it went into V3, and it's now come out the other end in V5. And it's not actually redundant. So although I might need to update it somewhat, some of the assets in there are still very valid. So if I'd done a publication, it's still sitting in there. I might need to add an extra one to it. I might need to update some of the learning activities. but actually it sits there. So some of my dormant pebbles can be pulled into this just to update it. So then I thought, what are we doing for the students who are graduating from university to encourage them to use the free alumni account? Because we've heard from a number of the sessions that it's sort of anecdotal that they take it. Initiating that free alumni account won't just happen unless it's advertised. There's no way we can do that. So we don't know when your students are going to graduate. We don't know if they're going to take an extra year. We don't have those answers. So getting the people who are managing those final year students to consider, explaining the benefits of taking that free alumni account with them. But we've seen some really good practice around academics providing things for students to take away. And I know many of the universities are creating revalidation guides and revalidation workbooks for nurses. So they're already doing that, which means that when they take that free alumni account, they've got a framework to work with. And I'm sure many other programs are thinking along those lines. The other really good example that I've seen, and I know some of you saw Andrew Kirk speak earlier on this morning, by using sort of meaningful tasks within PebblePad, he gets them to put together what's essentially a reference manual, and they take that with them. So it's thinking inventively of things we can do that mean that they're more likely to use that free alumni account. So, just because I thought you might be bored by PowerPoint by now, I just thought I'd put some holiday snaps in. But this really is a metaphor for getting out into the workplace.
Holiday home.
It would be nice, wouldn't it? Yes, that big one on the left with the balcony up there. So we send them out into the world of work. They become very consumed with all the things they have to do out there. And we hope that PebblePad will just be sitting in the background so that they can bring it up and use it in the future in the world of work. So what do they do when they get into the world of employment? We know that some people are using it for appraisal. So certainly at PebblePad, we're encouraged to do that, and we heard somebody else previously also talk about the fact they're using forms for appraisal. University of Cumbria have used it for some time for appraisal processes. Staff are given the choice, and over 50% of the staff still choose to use PebblePad. And I think that's maybe because, having gone through university 10 years worth of appraisals, I've still got an attic full of paperwork that I can't bear to throw out just yet. And so it makes the process much more streamlined, much more active, much more dialogic through the period of time. There's also a very, very good example at Leeds Beckett University, where they're actually having to apply for CPD study funding. And they're doing that through PebblePad and Atlas Workspace. It's reviewed in the workspace and final decisions made. So that's another example I know of. Preparing for the UK PSF, we know that some individuals are actually using that PebblePad and frameworks within PebblePad to put that together and get accredited. Another holiday picture. So there are lots of steps we have to take and lots of things we have to do through our employment life that mean we might get drawn back into using PebblePad for those evidences.
Where's that?
I can't think of the actual name, but it's the steps in the old town in Porto Pollensa.
Been there.
Yeah.
Which look very familiar for a moment.
You're really breathless when you get to the top. Okay. I just thought I'd put my appraisal up here because it leads nicely into the next bit. So this is the appraisal I think I had with Matthew last year. We've got a number of things we look at, just keeping it quite simple. Reviewing previous year, looking ahead to planning, and then actually together making a plan for the following year. And so my personal goal was to launch a V5 version of revalidation for nursing and midwifery, and that was for those people who don't get a free alumni account. So they come along to us and they think PebblePad would be useful. A personal account would be very useful for me. So we thought, is there any way we can identify if they are actually nurses or midwives? If they are, could we then give them some templated guidance to get them started? And that's what we have done. We haven't actually had a massive campaign to put it out there, but we've had a slow drip feed of people coming along, buying it, working with it. So we've essentially got our pilot. Didn't use the word pilot, did I really? We've got our initial implementation stage in place. Yeah. And then I think I put this on every year. Better time management and work-life balance.
How's that going?
It's a rolling programme.
It's agile.
Yeah, so that never really gets anywhere and never falls off the table either.
I'll expect to see that again soon.
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you what we have done, and it's probably going to be very similar to if any of you have done this for universities. But we really just wanted to give people a resource out there. In no way can we compete with some of the commercial products that have actually designed it. They're under the same constraints as we are. The Nursing and Midwifery Council in the UK has really got some things that you have to do on this piece of paper, and they've made it quite difficult. And as vendors, we haven't had the opportunity to have those conversations with them. But I know some of our colleagues who've done it in universities and Dementia UK have been able to have some of those conversations. So I'm happy we're compliant, but I think we could have done much more if we could have had some conversations with them. So what we've provided them with is a guidance web folio that guides them through the workbook that we've also provided them with. And the thing is, these people will not have probably come across PebblePad before. They might have been ex-students who never got the opportunity of a free alumni account, but what they're looking at as V5 is certainly going to be very different to anything they've dealt with before. So it's essentially really just got all of the guidance in it, and an opportunity to just really have a step-by-step guide of how to manage some of their work. Have I really talked that long? Sorry. Right. Have you just made that up?
No, I'm timing it.
Time management.
Yes. Right. Okay, I need to get cracking because I do need to tell you a few things. So, the things I suspect we do that are very personal and not guided by any of those things that we've talked about before, we are probably using it for career advancement. I would hope that if you're going to build a CV, a good web folio is going to be much better than a standard templated one off the web. Recording and organising personal learning, and I've watched a lot of people today here actually build things on folio pages, putting in pictures, evidencing what they've learned here, and maybe going to disseminate to their colleagues when they get back. Certainly should be using it for reflection, no excuse there. Journal keeping, I've started 100 food diaries in PebblePad. They've never finished either. But blogging, I've come across 2 cases when I've stood on a stand of people who said, I've bought a personal account. One was somebody going for a pilot licence, and the other one was going for Master of Ships. Where's Johnny? He's not in here, is he? Oh yeah, would it be Master of Ships? Sailing?
Sailing, yeah, okay. Yachtmaster.
Yachtmaster. So we don't know what people are using it for, and there could be more. The WI newsletter is my next project. So, that's just a nice sunset. I just want to really introduce you to this guy. This picture is a terrible one, which is why I'm not allowed to tweet from the PebblePad account anymore. Somebody's brownie up in Edinburgh. But Paul McLaughlin, I met Paul at a user group, and he talked extensively about his use of workbooks to support students for interconnected learning and for being able to using reflective learning alongside personal tutoring. But his biggest claim to fame is he manages his whole academic life through PebblePad. And I'm not suggesting we all do this, but for him it works, and it works really well. So he will run a session, he will blog about that session, and then when he runs that session next year, he goes back and he has another look at what worked, what didn't work, resources, etc. And I'm sure he'd talk to anybody if you wanted to. He also tags things together, uses it extensively, but he just came out of the woodwork talking about his academic classroom use and then telling us exactly what he did inside of PebblePad. Now it's all about you, so just 2 minutes if I can to take some 1 minute 47. And you can do it, I'm happy for you to do it in the changeover. So, pink post-it what you currently do in PebblePad that I don't know about, if you're willing to share, of course, because it could be very private. And a yellow one, what you might use it for from today, having listened to 3 days worth of conference presentations, and now the encouragement to get up and running yourselves. Does that sound fair enough?
You're putting those on the board.
And I'll put 2 columns up on the board, what you currently do, what you intend to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.